Hi there, it's November the 12th, and we're continuing our journey through the letter to the Hebrews, and we are in chapter 11, reading from verses 1 to 16. This is a famous chapter about the nature of faith. The writer to the Hebrews has been building up the encouragement to the people of God that he's writing to trust in the Lord, to put their full trust in him, even through difficult times, even through dangers, even through persecution, and to recognize that they have access into God's very presence. And the key here, he says, is faith. And so he's going to unpack what the nature of faith is. What does it mean to trust? What does it mean to believe God? And he's going to do it very simply by looking back to the Hebrew scriptures, looking back to the things which are the very essence, the very nature of what God's people are about, the story that has given them the foundation for their faith in God now. And so the first thing he says here at the opening of this chapter is that faith is the substance of what is hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And so that word substance is a very powerful word, hypostasis in Greek. It means the undergirding thing, the foundation of it. It means the essence of it, without which something cannot be. He says so faith is the substance of things hoped for. When we hope for things, we know that there is something coming. We have that in our hearts, even though it may not be seen. And then he says that it's the evidence, it's the facts of things that we don't yet see. We know that things we haven't yet seen, and the Greek word here is pragmaton. Pragmaton meaning it's the reality, it's the evidence, it's the facts of things even though we haven't seen them. So this seems a paradox in itself, and that's why the writer is going to unpack by pointing to various examples from the Hebrew scriptures. The first one he takes is creation itself. He says, by faith, God created. By faith, God brought the whole world out of nothing. Just by the trust, the knowing, the reality of his own word, the power of his own word, that when he speaks, everything comes into being. So where there was chaos, where there was nothing, God speaks, and by faith in his own word, everything comes into being. He then jumps to Abel, the story of Cain and Abel. He says, by faith, Abel offered a better sacrifice than Cain. Abel didn't come with a whole long list of things. He just had a relationship with God. He just saw what would please God, and he brought that to God. Obviously, because of that, he was killed by his brother. But the writer here says that his blood still speaks something more powerful, something better coming out from the ground. And then he talks about Enoch, Hanoch in Hebrew, the one who walked with God, and by faith he didn't even see death. This amazing tradition of Enoch who just went home to be with God without experiencing death. He walked with God and he ceased to exist. He was not anymore because God took him. And then he talks of Noah, who by faith, even when there was no evidence, there was no rain, there was nothing to suggest that floods even existed, he built the ark, facing the ridicule of the people around him, facing opposition, but he still continued to do it. So he points to Noah as being an example of faith. And then, of course, he points to Abraham and Sarah, who are seen as so foundational in the whole story of the people of God, that Abraham trusted God and left the home that he had settled in, a place where he was at home in Haran, and he travelled to Canaan, not knowing exactly what was going to happen, but because he trusted, because he had faith in God. He went, he travelled, he established a place there, and even Sarah, his wife, who could not conceive, trusted God. And saw God do something in her own body as an evidence of the trust that she'd put within him. And then the writer says something interesting, having given this whole list of people from the Hebrew scriptures. He says these all died in faith. They didn't see the fulfillment of what they had hoped for, of what they trusted for. Now that's a real challenge, because they say, well, surely faith should be able to materialize something. But here the writer is saying, no, they were looking for something greater. They were looking for something from God. They weren't just looking for what's here based in front of them in the earth. They were looking for something greater, something that comes only from God's presence, something that only God can bring. And that is because they're looking for a homeland in God. The word used in Greek, patrida, they're looking for a homeland, they're looking for a fatherland in God. There's something so key about God's presence here, about who God is, that makes a difference to who they are. And that's why God calls them, is not ashamed to be called their God and to call them his people, because of this trust, because of this faith. As we consider these amazing characters from the Hebrew Scriptures, we can also be challenged this morning to fresh faith, to a fresh call to put our whole weight onto God in all our circumstances, and to know that by faith we can come to him and see him do amazing things. Have a very good November 12th.